Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing well. Thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to click here on another video. But most notably, thank you for coming down memory lane with me, where today we're going to be talking about a film that earlier this year in April hit 30 years, came out in 1995, a staple of animation, a staple of my childhood, a film that I just have so many fond memories of. And I actually just got back from a D23 30th anniversary screening. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a second, but today I'm so happy to finally be talking about a movie that I've wanted to talk about since I started this channel nearly 7 years ago, and that film is called A Goofy Movie. Directed by Lima, this film stars people like Bill Farmer, Jason Marsden, Jim Cummings, Rob Paulsen, and many more. I can't believe it's been 30 years. It's kind of hard to wrap my mind around because this film came out when I was very young. I'm 32 years old as of this year, just actually a couple months back, and it's so weird to be in this age range now where I'm a full-blown adult in terms of how anybody would see me, and I just am. I've been an adult for a while, but now being in my 30s and still feeling like a big kid and having all these nostalgic memories for things like A Goofy Movie. And it's insane to me to look back at something like this as, something that is old to a lot of people, but man, I have so many fond memories of this film. And so tonight, like I just mentioned a moment ago, I did attend a D23 throwback 30th anniversary screening, which was a blast. They gave us tons of little goodies and some little knickknacks. They gave us this pass here for it as well, and gave us some little things that are like memorabilia to the film, some pins and stuff like that, which was really cool. But one of the coolest experiences about the whole thing as well was actually having Lima, the director, come out on stage and speak to the audience alongside Bill Farmer, who plays Goofy, and Jason Marsden, who plays Max, Goofy's son. So I got to actually have two of the main stars of the film right there in front of me after all these years. And not even just with this movie, I've been a big fan of Bill Farmer as Goofy in so many things, but also Jason Marsden has been in tons of other things as well. And Lima as a director is somebody I have a lot of love for, because while A Goofy Movie was his feature directorial debut, he would go on to direct 1999's Tarzan, which I would argue is maybe one of the best Disney films and one of the most underrated Disney films of all time. And then he would go on to also direct 2007's Enchanted, which was a big movie at its time. So, when you look at this film and what it would kind of do for these cast members and for these characters moving forward, it's really huge, because when this film first came out, it didn't make a lot of money. It wasn't a film that did really well at the box office, especially when you look at all the Disney films that came out in the 90s. I mean, that Renaissance era was stacked with films, and unfortunately, A Goofy Movie just didn't really stand up to those. But it's a film that found life through VHS, through Disney Channel, and different things like that. And I know me, myself, and my sister, we used to watch the VHS for this over and over and over and over. I mean, I ran that tape dry, and over the course of years, I would end up watching it on Disney Channel as well. And just all in all, just a lot of fond memories, it was such a good time to see this on the big screen again. And we're gonna get into the review portion of this video. I know this is a little bit longer than my traditional setups for my reviews, but I think it goes without saying that I have a lot of nostalgia for this movie. This film holds a very special place in my heart, and to see it celebrating 30 years is insane. But being able to have seen it on the big screen was even better. Though I will say, one thing I knew what was going to be the case with this film and this screening was that it was going to be an interactive screening, that there were going to be elements about it that got the audience involved. I just didn't know to what extent. But let's just say there was a lot of hooting and hollering at the screen throughout the course of the film. There was a lot of moments where they wanted people to interact with certain things that were happening on screen, especially some of the musical numbers, which are great, and glow sticks and a lot of different things going on, a lot of cheering, a lot of talking during the movie. So while it was a rambunctious screening, it was fun to at least still see, and it was, I guess, fun to experience, though the part of my brain that likes to watch movies and just fully take in the film was struggling. It felt like this film screening was essentially against all movie-going etiquette, but I guess I should have expected that with an interactive screening. But with all of that said, let's get into what this film is all about, and then we'll get into my thoughts on the film. The film focuses on Goofy, who's worried about drifting apart from his teenage son Max and decides to take him on a cross-country father-son road trip. Max, however, has plans of his own, impressing his crush Roxanne by promising to be at a Powerline concert. The journey becomes a mix of heartfelt family bonding, slapstick comedy, and memorable music as father and son clash and eventually find common ground. And one thing that I just kind of had forgotten when I was watching this film was just how breezy this film is. It does not take a lot of your time. It moves really quickly, but it also has downtime for characters. And I think something that people need to take into consideration when it comes down to this, if you're like me and you grew up watching the Disney animated shorts of Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, Goofy, and all these other characters, then you'll know that Goofy, for the most part, before this movie came out, was kind of just a slapstick character. He was mostly relegated to comedy and silly sketches and silly things like that, the Goof Troop. And essentially this movie started as an idea for a Goof Troop movie and then eventually just became a flat out Goofy movie. And when you watch this movie, I think what's beautiful about it is they take a character that is this slapstick, goofy, over the top character with his loud yells and all that stuff, and they give him heart, they give him charm, they give him a real character arc in the film. But not only him, his son as well, Max. This is a film about father and son journey, and while I've been very grateful to have a good relationship with both of my parents, I can totally see how this film could be so relatable to so many others. And even as somebody who hasn't experienced that kind of divide and disconnect from my parents the way that many others have, the film still makes it relatable. It makes it something where you could feel like you're going on a journey with these characters. And amidst the Disney numbers of musical songs in here that are great, there's some great ones, of course, with Eye to Eye being the biggest one at the end with Powerline. Everybody loves that song. It's the thing everybody thinks of when they think of this film, especially when they think of the songs. But overall, the film is jam-packed with great songs, and it's got that beautiful, just charming animation of the olden days of hand-drawn animation coming from Disney. And I would argue that the 80s and 90s has some of the best 2D animation of all time, and not just coming from Disney, but other studios as well. But this film falls right into that. There was a charm to watching it on the big screen. There was something about it that felt cinematic and didn't feel overly polished, the same way that a lot of films do these days, especially animated films. And while I can definitely appreciate a beautiful animated film of the modern day, there is just something nostalgic and just something charming about animation of this time. So yeah, being able to see it on the big screen, on a big clear screen, was really beautiful because it still kind of had this grainy, hand-drawn element to it that just made it really charming, made it very endearing to watch. So you got those great musical numbers, and then you take a character who, again, it was this slapstick character, and make him a father to a kid that wants nothing to do with his dad, who thinks he's too cool for school and is trying to impress the girl Roxanne. And let's talk about Roxanne for just a moment. You know, I can't be the only guy who was growing up as a kid who saw Roxanne and you know.
You what?
But yeah, in all seriousness, you have this, this interesting, fun story that, is a tale as old as time now, but I think a Goofy movie does it so well. And right before we saw the movie, I mentioned that the cast was there, and Bill Farmer, who plays Goofy, came out and said that, one of the things he loves about this film is that he goes to Comic-Cons and different things like that and has fans come up and they say that this is like their favorite movie of his and that it means so much to them. But most notably, he's had fans come up and say that the film has, kind of changed their life, that they didn't know how to communicate with their parent, they didn't know how to communicate with their dad, and they were able to bond through this movie. And I think that's a beautiful thing because there is a really heartfelt story here between Goofy and Max. I think that the journey that Max goes on and his overzealous nature of trying to impress the girl and be cool and didn't want to be anything like his dad. Even the fact that the movie opens with him having a nightmare that he's becoming his father, I think is a really interesting thing because I think that this film tackles it all really well and in such a relatable way. It's all silly and there's all these great, comedic bits of the film that are so quotable and the audience was quoting everything at the screen. But more than anything, you do have this deep core where there are these really somber, touching moments between the characters, especially certain moments in the car, specifically a scene where Pete, who's of course in this film as well, one of the classic Disney characters, who's another parent who's kind of trying to teach Goofy how to be a dad, and Goofy is kind of just not doing well going based on Pete's direction, of course, and eventually decides to do things on his own, and this leads to him and Max having a great time. But what he doesn't know is that Max actually changed the roadmap of where they were heading and was obviously sending them to LA to the Powerline concert. And so the scene where Pete reveals that to Goofy, and then Goofy goes and sees the map and sees that it actually was the case, and the really sad walk into the hotel room and the way he lies down in bed, the movie does have these moments where things get somber, where things get sad, where you really do feel for Goofy. And at times you feel for Max as well. And you can really see both sides. And I think that this film, while it's silly, while it's got the big musical numbers, while it's colorful and vibrant and just has so many jokes left and right, and there's so many quotable, silly moments, it's a film that truly has these incredibly touching father-son moments, or just parent-child moments that I think anybody can relate to. And even as a kid, I remember finding myself really invested in this story and finding myself so immersed in the idea of it. And I think even now, watching it as a 32-year-old, even though the fact that my theater was a bit disruptive because of the nature of the immersive screening, I was still really into those moments. And I found myself just wanting to just, give both Goofy and Max a hug, even though I've seen this film a million times and I know how it ends. And so I think that's kind of the beauty of a film like this. It had been a long time since I had watched a Goofy movie, but I urge you, if you are a fan of a Goofy movie, if you have fond memories of having watched it with your family when you were younger, or just watching it in general when you were younger, and you haven't seen it in a long time, this year is the 30th anniversary. April was technically the 30th anniversary, but this year is the 30th anniversary. Give it a watch. It's on Disney Plus, I'm pretty sure. Or, maybe find that old VHS and throw it in. But all in all, I think that a Goofy movie is just a top tier Disney film. It's got the charm, it's got the heart, it's got the music, it's got the laughs, it's got the great message, but it also takes it to this other level of not just being, cookie cutter, silly, happy go lucky, everything is fine. It is a movie about a father and son clashing. It's a movie about a dad who's really trying to be a part of his son's life, and his son just doesn't see that. And for his son to eventually kind of come to terms with that throughout the course of the film, as they butt heads, as he realizes the pain he's inflicted on his dad, to take a character like Goofy at the time especially, and turn him from this slapstick, jokey character to a character with heart, a character with feelings, a character with emotion. I don't think Goofy as a character has ever been the same since this movie. Anything that has ever utilized him has always tried to give the character layers. While he's still Goofy at its core, I think that when you look at a film like this, you realize that they wanted to make something special. They wanted to make something that made these characters more than just cartoon characters. And I think that that's why this film resonated with people for many years on VHS, on Disney Channel, and now years later, here I am watching it on the big screen again with the cast there celebrating it in a theater of people who are quoting the lines at the screen, who are singing the songs, who are swinging glow sticks around in excitement for these moments, who are cheering at the moments that we already know are coming. And while I did just watch it in a very hyped up environment, this was a film I already loved. And so this video for me isn't even really trying to be hypercritical, because while I could poke a little fun at things here and there and say, oh, the movie moves pretty quickly, a couple things are underdeveloped here and there, or they speed through a couple of things, I think when you look at the bare bones of a story, a Goofy movie has it all. It has the heart, it has the charm, it has the wit, it has the silliness, it has the music, it has the animation, it has it has that zest. And more than anything, I love a Goofy movie. And then of course there's Pauly Shore as Bobby, who's just essentially Pauly Shore. I've always been a fan of Pauly Shore. He's, maybe said some things here and there, but when I think about the films of his, specifically from like the late 80s and the 90s, just top tier. And even nowadays when I see him pop up here and there on some random podcast or something else, he's a funny character. But yeah, here he's just essentially playing classic Pauly Shore. And it's interesting because I thought the character of Bobby was a bigger character in the film, or at least I remembered him being a bigger character. And he's a really small role in this first film for sure, but it has some of the most quotable and memorable lines of the entire film. And I gotta wrap this up, of course, by talking about Powerline, the big rock star character in the film. Everybody loves this character. In the last few years, the amount of merch I've seen for this character has been insane. The amount of people I've seen cosplayed as that character in that classic yellow jumpsuit of sorts. The amount of people that I've seen, do the dance number online. It just goes to show that a Goofy movie has just resonated with fans for many, many years. And having seen it on screen tonight with a theater full of nerds who love this movie, I think it was a beautiful thing, and it just reminds me of, what films can be to people, and it's not just like, hey, I like watching movies, or hey, I like, that movie was cool, it's got badass action or something. there's something to the notion of watching something that really resonates with you on an emotional level, that sticks with you throughout your childhood, that is something you can look back on in your childhood and think of fondly. Because there's plenty of films I haven't seen in many years from my childhood that I can say, yeah, I remember liking that movie. But a Goofy movie is one of those, and Disney was prime for that in the 90s. But a Goofy movie is one of those where it just tugs on the heart in just the right way, and it tells a simplistic but really impactful story with all the right ingredients. So yeah, guys, that's gonna be my long rambly celebration of a Goofy movie. I think this is a fantastic film. If you haven't already seen it, watch it. If you have seen it, go watch it again. Celebrate it for its 30th anniversary. It certainly deserves it. It's a film that I think will remind you of when films, especially animation, had just a certain charm that even the best animated films today, films that I've praised up and down, just aren't able to touch. And I think that part of it is the animation. I think part of it is the voice acting of the time. Part of it is nostalgia. But I just think there's something to films of that time. If you guys have been following this channel, you know that I've covered a lot of things from the past, and I often talk about just a charm of a time. And when it comes down to animation of the 80s and 90s, there's just a charm of that 2D hand-drawn animation. So, all right, guys, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to click here on this video. Leave some thoughts down below. What does this film mean to you? What memories do you have around a Goofy movie? Is it a film that you have fond memories of? Is it a film you have nostalgia for? Do you remember watching it with your family? Did it maybe mean something to you when it came down to a parental situation you had going on? Or if you're a parent now watching this, are there elements about this film that you feel like you can really relate to when it comes down to your own kids? Whatever the case may be, leave any and all comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one, all right? Bye-bye.